Let me go ahead and get things started here. Actually, you know what? That was a good idea. I think I'll leave that up there just so I know who you are. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get things going. We're here today to talk a little bit about some things that are going on in our environment. And, as usual, my PowerPoint did not show up. Okay, so I'm going to have to. How am I going to do this? Let's do this. Basic, advanced files. And that isn't what we were going to do. I hate it when this happens. Okay, all right. Linda, where's Linda? Can somebody get Linda? All right, just messing. I'm going to minimize all this. Okay, I got to go down there, exit full screen, pull up my PowerPoint again. Now, I don't know if you all can see what I'm doing, but there's a lot going on here. Okay, all right. I'm going to go ahead and get us started with my quick little PowerPoint that kind of explains where we are. And so in order to do that, I got to pull us back up again. There I am. And let me see here. We're going to share the screen. I'm going to just share the whole thing with you. How's that? Here we are. And there we are. Okay, Jane, I do this every week. I get better at it. Actually, this is the first time I've fumbled through the beginning of it like this. Okay, so let's go ahead and get rolling here. I'm going to share my PowerPoint with you just so that we can get some of the formalities out of the way. This is, we are in not so sunny San Diego, California. Linda and I are sequestered in a bunker in the Cheyenne Mountains at NORAD because of all this COVID thing. Not really. There's my phone number. There's my email address. I am proud to be the immediate past president of the Greater San Diego Association of Realtors. I have a couple of things I've done in my life. There you go. Big deal. I always ask people, so what are you doing today, right? Awards are for things that you've done in the past. What are you doing today? I was just asked I do a summer class, MCLE credit for continuing education for attorneys at UCSD on real property law. And I was just asked to put the entire class online. Wow, that's big. I've been doing it for years, doing the class for years, kind of as a hybrid, but now they want it to be completely online. And folks, I think that's where our industry is going. And I think that this pandemic that is here, I think that is also going to lead us to more of this kind of thing. And so I have to thank Jane and the association for being forward thinking on this. We started this process about a year ago of converting our classes to online webinars, and they've been very successful. Our attendance is amazing, and we want to invite everybody to be coming to that. We've got so many good things that are going on. So thank you to the association for allowing me to do this today. Thank you to Don Tanner, our chair, Rocky Rockhill, our vice chair, Jane, of course, love Jane. Jane is so good. The way her mind works, it's just somehow keeps me focused. So, and then David, of course, David makes me look good on screen. So I have to thank David. Without their efforts, these webinars would not be possible. And we have been doing these every week now for, like I say, almost a year. But today is kind of a hot button for us because we've got COVID-19 has become quite a hot issue. So, and there's a lot of reason for that. So there's my email address. We have an email that goes out weekly. The numbers are climbing in it. If you want to be involved in that, send me an email, kevin@burkerealestateconsultants.com. I promise you, except for today, it'll only go out once a week. I had to send it again today because a lot of people hadn't gotten the word that we were going to be doing this webinar. We just found out about it 2 days ago. So excuse me. So please, send me an email. I'm more than happy to put you in there. You can unsubscribe anytime or just let me know, hey, here's some content I think you should put in your weekly thing. We did this at the pitch session. I had 2,400 people that were receiving my email with about a 64% open rate. So I assure you the content will be worth it. We are going to be talking today about subjects that are going to be legal, are going to sound legal. I am not a practicing attorney. I do a lot of trial work. My topic is standard of care. I have enough cases to keep me busy. And for me, I like going to court. For you and the rest of us, in real estate, we don't want to go to court. There's no money in that for us. But somebody's got to defend you, and I'm doing it as an expert, not as an attorney. Our conversation today is not intended to be a substitute for the advice of your broker, nor for that of your attorney. I referred people to their attorneys today. A couple of people sent me some messages, and I said, hey, you might want to talk to counsel about that. It's going to be something outside of my field of expertise. Everything I know about real estate, I learned by virtue of my association with the association. Please be involved, be as involved as you can be. There's so much to learn, so much going on. If you're a newer agent, and I'm looking at my list, we've got some people that have been around a long time, but we have a lot of people that are new. What a great place to learn the practice of real estate, rather than, as I say, learning them in a transaction by trial and error. We make an error, we go to trial. So we want to avoid that, okay? Our discussion today is live. It is Thursday morning at 10 a.m. in beautiful San Diego, California. If you want to see the tapes that we have been doing, if you're concerned about paragraph number 21 of the RPA, for example, go to the SDR website, hit the drop down education, go to webinars, and you can pull everything up in there. Jane and David have done a great job of making sure that those are available to you. Today, this is going to be interactive, so I appreciate that if you would give me feedback as I go along. Please ask questions. I'm going to ask you if you have questions. I have to drop down to look at the bottom of the screen in order to see if there are any currently waiting for me, so please be patient for me, okay? Upcoming sessions, we do zip forms the first Thursday of every month. We do the RLA and the BRE every week Wednesday. Today at 1 o'clock, so in about 3 hours, we're going to hit a couple more paragraphs of the RLA. When we're done with that, we're going to slide into the BRE. RPA is today. We did the RLA yesterday. So today, the RPA, we're going to hit a couple of good paragraphs on that at 1 o'clock. Today, we're going to talk about the coronavirus form, and it's creating quite a stir. But I'm going to make it, hopefully, I'm a practitioner like you. I'm going to hopefully make it so it's digestible, that it'll be easier for you to, be able to decide whether or not you want to work with it or not work with it. Talk to your broker. We're going to always defer to the advice of your broker. So education@sdar.com. If you can think of anything that you would like to see, and I've had some really good suggestions. I had somebody ask me yesterday about the request for repair form, and why aren't there any time limits, and how do I handle that? And boy, I wrote a 2-page thing, and I was so excited to talk about it. Those are the kinds of things I think we should be doing in webinars. We did them previously on the TDS, SPQ, and SPQA. Jane was kind enough to set that up, and I thought they were great webinars. I mean, I really enjoyed doing them. I actually get a chance to kind of disgorge my brain of all the information. So please let us know, education@sdar.com, if you want more information on, more webinars on different subjects, because we are building that library as we speak, okay? So let's go ahead and get off of this for a short bit, and I'm going to go ahead and take us into our subject matter. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on. And by the way, so you all should be able to see the COVID-19 coronavirus addendum amendment. I have watched the C.A.R. webinar on the subject a couple of times. It was interesting. They had 1,000 seats. I showed up, they were already sold out, right? And so I had to look at the tape version of it, and I can tell you, I had to watch it a couple of times because it's so choppy. There were so many people logging in. They had already gotten, all the seats were done, but so many people were logged in that the audio and the video were delayed, and it was kind of a mess. So hopefully I'm saving you having to go through all that. I am more than happy to send you my notes. I went through and transcribed my notes of that entire webinar. It was a 1-hour webinar. And again, my hat's off to the C.A.R attorneys. They did a great job. I can tell you, we're going to have some local issues here in San Diego that we're going to have to address. And I applaud our risk management committee and department at the San Diego Association of Realtors, because I know we're going to launch into that. And it's going to be definitely a subject for us to discuss as far as the local impact is concerned. So in the meantime, C.A.R came up with this form, and pretty hastily, because you have to realize that 2 weeks ago we didn't know that this was going to be the issue that it was going to be. So C.A.R came up with this form, and I'm hoping that's somebody saying that they can see it. I definitely want your notes. Oh, thank you, Barbara. Yeah, listen, send me an email, okay? Because I don't get to see this screen later. I don't know how to pull it. So if you want my notes, please send me an email, Kevin@BurkeRealEstateConsultants.com, or you can send them to, thank you, Dottie. You can send them to education@sdar.com. They'll let me know. I have all the handouts, the PowerPoint, the slides. I have stuff for you that we're going to talk about today. I am more than happy to send all this to you, okay? So, I don't worry about work product or anything like that. There's a lot. And so I want you to have this, okay? So I'm just going to look at my notes over here really quick. Add coronavirus to your dictionary, because we are going to be talking about this for a while. Okay, this is going to be subject matter. I watch the statistics probably every hour. I refresh the page. There's a really good website, Worldometer, I think it's called, that's giving me a breakdown of how many across the world, across the globe, of the data. If you're interested in the data, I'm seeing pockets of slowing. I'm seeing not as many new cases, but I assure you this is going to be here for a while. So please take it seriously. I'm serious. Linda and I haven't left the house in 3 days. Okay, we have food, that kind of thing. Normally Linda just shoves a tray of food underneath my door. It's gonna feel like a prisoner, just because she wants to make sure I'm going to eat, right? So because I do forget to eat, but this is serious. Take this stuff really seriously. This is going to be with us for a while. So when we talk about the form itself, we're going to be talking about contractual shifting. So we're going to be talking about how in a purchase agreement between a buyer and a seller, there's a shift of burden. So when we start into a contract between the parties, we are creating a quid pro quo, so to speak. The buyer has contingencies that they are going to have a right to do while they're in their transaction, and this is why we're going to have this form. So they're going to have contingencies in the transaction. When the buyer removes those contingencies, they shift the burden. The burden is on the seller to wait for the buyer to do things. Once the buyer removes those contingencies, they shift the burden away from the seller and back onto the buyer. So in other words, the buyer now is going to be worried about whether or not they're going to be able to perform. So we're going to break this document down into several slides, or several things. We're hitting it live. Okay, so this is live, all right? So I wanted to talk to you about that. The other issue is that we're going to have a topic. If you look at the form, I'm going to scroll it down just a little bit. You all see it's called C.A.R. Form CVA. It is already in your Zip Forms program. The final version, this version, is already in your Zip Forms program. And we're going to kill it today. We're just going to go through it and we're going to hit it line by line. So that's why, I've only got 4 hours to do this today. No, I'm just kidding. Jane gave me an hour. We're going to bleed over a little bit. Okay, but not by much though. I'm going to try to get this condensed into an hour, and I'm more than happy to help you. As you all know, I'm more than happy to help you after this, after the webinar today, to help you go through, what your questions and concerns are going to be on this. But you can see from the date up at the top of the form, you can already see that this form is one of those rare situations where we actually bring the form in outside of when it is when we normally do it. So most of your forms say December or June or May. Now we're doing this one early because this is a hot topic, and I'm going to talk to you about why it's such a big deal. We're going to talk about force majeure, which is a term of law, in case you're interested in it. Excuse me. And so we're going to talk about a couple of things, but we're going to do them in the context of the form itself, okay? So let's take a look. Up at the top, you all know that you've been in my webinars before. You all know that we have the beginning of things up at the very top, where we're going to have essentially the linking part of things. This is linking this form to our purchase agreement. That's the purpose. So and by the way, you can add this in the middle of a transaction if you choose to do so. I'm going to recommend, most importantly, that you talk to your broker. What is your broker's policy on this? Okay, it can be an amendment to a current transaction, or you're creating a new transaction and you're concerned about it. We've got probably half a dozen transactions closing next week. We're in our brokerage, we're probably not going to add those to them because all this stuff has already been done. We're ready to go. We're just waiting to close. But I'm going to talk to you about some reasons why that might not be good for you. So let's take a look at that. Okay. All this up top here is called the recitals. Okay. All this is the recitals. This is the linking part of our document to the purchase agreement. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and move us down just a little bit. Obviously, it's an agreement between the buyer and the seller. Interestingly enough, we're going to talk about what happens to your listing agreement, the agreement between yourself, your broker, and the seller, and how this is going to maybe, this is definitely changing things. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about open houses. We're going to talk about things that are going to be really important to you and I, because like you, I am a practitioner. I'm here to do real estate. I'm here to, sell houses, help people do what they're going to do. But you all know, if you're watching the news, there's definitely a lockdown going on. Okay, so let me take a look just to check my notes. So force majeure is a term of law. It is not something that we put in any of our residential purchase agreements, but if you are familiar with commercial transactions, there's almost always a force majeure clause in those, and that just says that if there's something that happens, that is just unthinkable, it is just something way off the grid, an unforeseen circumstance, if you will, then the parties might have a way to exit the transaction. So the purpose behind this form is to keep you from having to worry about that, and essentially create up front what's going to happen if there's that unthinkable thing that has to do with this coronavirus. Okay, so we don't want to be that test case. The attorney spent a long time yesterday discussing the fact that if somebody loses their job in the middle of a transaction because of the coronavirus, they lose their job, they see a reduction in income, they're an independent contractor that doesn't, now can't make any money, things like that. So they wanted to address this in a form rather than you being that test case that could be years down the line in a lawsuit. Okay, so we want to avoid the lawsuits. Again, some of us like going to court, but it is never a good place for us. Okay. All right, Barbara, I know you would agree. I hate going to court. Well, I love going to court, but certainly not for this. So anyway, I'm going to tell you that the beginning of this document is intended to be explanation. I kind of like it. I don't like it so much in the new RPA that's coming out. And if you want a copy of the new RPA, send me an email and I'll send you the draft 9 version where we are right now. We've been sharing that at the Risk Management Committee, and we just sent our thoughts to C.A.R. on it, but they're doing more and more explanation in the contract. I kind of personally think it should be on a separate document, but okay, rather than the contract between the parties. So here we go. From time to time, we're going to tell a story. Okay, events may overtake the ability of the parties to a contract to allocate the risk of non-performance. So what happens? Usually your transaction, if it's going to fail, it's going to normally fail based on non-performance on the part of the buyer. I think we all know that. Okay, so I don't want to get too deep into the legal stuff, but almost always our lawsuits, our buyer is either unable or unwilling to perform, and so they're trying to exit the transaction. Okay, so those are often addressed, as it says in here, by a force majeure clause. All right, as I've said earlier, that it allows the parties to maybe suspend or terminate their their agreement because of something that wasn't anticipated. And so coronavirus is that thing. We're not just talking about I lost my job. We're talking about something that is affecting the country, that is affecting the globe. Okay, we're talking about a very big deal. Okay, and it's, you know, there are a lot of measures being taken right now that we're going to discuss in a minute to try to stem the rapid increase of that, and it is increasing. Okay, and I said earlier the rate at which it's increasing, I'm seeing it at different levels in different areas. But again, I'll send you my data on that as well. Okay, so sometimes it's just beyond the control of the parties. Okay, and that's essentially what paragraph number 1 talks about. Okay, it's impossible or impractical, and we want to avoid the lawsuit where we challenge, hey, I just couldn't do it, and I had reasons for me not being able to do it. Okay, all right, so that's pretty much your paragraph number 1. All of that essentially in a nutshell. Paragraph number 2, the current worldwide coronavirus, which is the COVID-19. And by the way, I don't know if you've had a chance. I took Linda on a tour. We were in DC maybe a month ago. No, not a month ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago. My traveling has definitely been cut down now, but we were in DC, took her into the Smithsonian, Natural History Museum, and they had a whole quarter of a floor on outbreaks, epidemics, things like that. And it was interesting that even at the Smithsonian, they drilled into this subject of the coronavirus. They talked about SARS, they talked about MERS, they talked about all these different things. And they said, you know, this one's going to be a big one. This one is mutating, it is taking on new forms regularly. It's going to be a big deal. They don't think it's going to be as big a deal as some of the other things that have happened. I'm going to tell you, if it personally impacts you, it's a big deal. Okay, and now we're all huddled in our homes or whatever, and so you know what, it's a big deal. People are buying toilet paper. I still don't get that, but I'm all right, whatever people want to do. Okay, so it is going to have an unprecedented impact on our business, and that's important for us sitting here today. So travel restrictions, I'm looking at flights back and forth across the country for $130. I mean, normally they're $600 or more each way, by the way. But you know, it is definitely restricting, it is definitely causing an impact on our lives. So self-imposed and governmentally regulated isolations. We're going to talk about your shelter, you know, in Northern California and what's going on there. Closures of offices, including title plants and county recorder's offices. And so we're going to have to deal with those issues. Okay, so a lot of our people now are working from home. As you probably know, and you're probably working from home as well. It's probably a good time to beef up your internet access. Okay, are there any questions so far? I've gone through paragraphs 1 and 2. I'm enjoying my Barry's tea from Ireland. Seeing none. Okay, I'm going to keep moving. All right, so that's paragraph number 1. Number 2 talks about, hey, something else outside of our control may impact our ability to close a transaction. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about gap insurance coming up towards the end of our event here today. So no questions on 1 and 2. I'm going to go ahead with number 3. Okay, so and now we're going back to, again, 1 and 2 are the explanation of why we are where we are today. Let me just check my notes really quick. So that force majeure, it is California Civil Code 1511, in case you wanted to look those things up. You know, it's just something I like to do. You know, I looked it up, 1511. So here's the thing, there's a statute, but why are we concerned about that if there is a statute? Because the statute came out from the early 1900s when we experienced this other flu that was going on at that time. And so the problem is the legal system, the court system is giving us judgments in both directions. So it's really hard to put it all together. And that's one of the reasons why we decided we were going to come up with this, was because we wanted to make sure that you know, we weren't that next test case. Okay, I mean, these are bad times for people. So when we get into paragraphs 1, 2, 3, and 4, you're going to see how important that's going to be. What else? Okay, good. So now what I'm going to talk about is, let me hit this last one really quick. So accordingly, in the event complying with close of escrow is not practical or possible or practical because of those unforeseen circumstances related to COVID-19. Now, folks, this is COVID-19. Okay, so understand that this may have implications on other things, but this form is specifically for this pandemic. Okay, so again, and here it talks about the stuff we just talked about above, closings or delays in related government business services. I can't get to a closing, or in Northern California we call it a settlement, because I'm in my home, I'm hunkered down, I'm the at-risk population, I'm in excess of 60 years of age, or whatever that number is. Clearly I meet that criteria, and so now I'm going to not be able to go out and do the things that I was, going to do before. And that includes, don't send me a mobile notary. I don't want any interaction with anybody. Okay. And in fact, our stores now are even opening up special hours for seniors and things like that, trying to keep this thing from going, getting out of control. So far, we're doing a much better job than we've done in the past, but it's still a big deal. Okay. So, but they talk about closing of lenders, title and escrow, county assessors, recorders, okay, those kinds of things. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. I want to dig into this, and please, again, if you have questions, let me know. You can either hit the Q&A button, or you can hit the chat button, okay? And then that'll let me know that you have a question. So let's take a look at paragraph number 1. All right. Here we go. Paragraph number 1. This is the default paragraph. So this is the paragraph that we're going to go with if you don't check any of the other boxes. Okay. So that paragraph says that the parties, buyer and seller, agree to postpone closing. We call this the pause clause. Okay. Up to 30 days, or however many you put in there, maybe 1 day, maybe 60 days. We don't know. We don't know how long this will be around, to accommodate unforeseen circumstances, after which either party may cancel. Now, the sad truth about this is that after the delay, they still have the right to cancel. Okay. So, so we don't know. That's why they wrote it the way that they wrote it. Our attorneys on the risk management committee have said, I don't like that automatic, cancellation thing. And I have to agree with that. But this is what this says. And this is, again, the default language. So your input on this is going to be limited to right here. Okay. So far in paragraph number 1, that's the limit of my input. Okay. At which time either party may cancel, and the buyer's deposit shall be returned to the buyer. Okay. Minus whatever fees or costs or anything like that are incurred by the buyer. Everybody follow me so far? So this is the pause clause. Okay. All right. So no notice is required. Okay, so no notice to perform either by the seller or the buyer, not an NBP or an NSP, or demand to close shall be required. Now, demand to close, remember, is used after the parties, the party, whichever the buyer usually has removed all of their contingencies, and now they only have a closing. So once they've removed them, then they can't get them back again in a normal contract. And we like that, right? As practitioners, we like the fact that the buyer has committed to the transaction. But again, then there's those unforeseen circumstances. So Dottie's asking you a really good question. Is there a maximum amount of time? The answer is whatever you want to put in there. Okay, so that's why I said a second ago, this is the limit of your input on paragraph number 1, which is the default paragraph that says we're going to we agree to postpone for 30 or whatever days you want to postpone, whatever you put in this at the time of the contract. Okay, so this is, normally this would be something that you would do rolling forward. Okay, so Dottie, really good question. You could do whatever you'd want to do. I would check with your broker first, because remember, this form is also not required. It is also not a mandatory form. It is only there as a suggestion by C.A.R. in case the parties want to nail down the inevitable or the unforeseen situation. They are recommending this form, that you could use this form. You have to use this form. I'm aware of, and I've already reviewed forms created by some other brokerage firms. It's kind of a new area for all of us, right? Okay, so the answer is the language in some of those are different. I don't think that some of the forms I've been reading from other brokerages have thought that C.A.R. would come up with one, but of course we like C.A.R. coming up with them, because then we are now going to have a standard of practice in California that is going to be determined by the California Association of Realtors. They kind of like to be on the forefront of that and give us the tools that we need to have. You know that our San Diego risk management committee, which is made up of probably at least 16 of the brightest real estate attorneys I know, who are, in the field, right? Rather than, answering hotlines, they are in the field. I'm not discounting the hotline, but they are in the field doing this every day, and they see these problems. So what's beautiful about all of this is that we are all getting together, the C.A.R attorneys, the San Diego risk management attorneys, we're all getting together and coming up, looking for that solution that will help us through this time, okay? So Martha, question, can we check box 1 and 2? The answer is yes, you can check both boxes, okay? We're gonna get into 1 and 2 here in a second. So do I have everybody's consensus that the default is going to be paragraph number 1, which says we're automatically going to extend for a time certain, either 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever your broker, talk to your broker about this, whatever your broker says is, we want to see that in the contract, okay? So again, all of this is very fluid. It's constantly moving. I anticipate a change in this form probably within the next 30 days, with God willing, that we won't even need it in 60 days. I don't see that, but I'm okay. Okay. All right. So, all right. What else? So Martha, I hope I answered your question. And then I'm looking at my notes really fast. I'm sorry, I got 2 huge monitors here. And so I'm just going over here. Okay. So I'm going to break us down now into the, so paragraph 1, I called it the pause clause. And the default is 30 days because we are anticipating problems. Optional paragraph number 2. So when I start seeing check boxes, right, my optional paragraphs, and I'm not suggesting that you check those boxes by me checking them. I'm not suggesting, thank you, Martha. I'm not suggesting that you check them. I'm just telling you that there's a checkbox there, okay? So so we had paragraph number 1. Now we're gonna talk about paragraph number 2. And so if checked, so if you want that to apply, and yes, it can be used along with paragraph number 1, okay? But we're gonna read this and we're gonna realize, wow, this has a new wrinkle to it, okay? So buyer and seller, again, parties agree, notwithstanding that buyer may have removed their loan contingency. So this is in the event, and again, your seller may not want to do this. This is definitely here to protect the buyer, okay? But even though the buyer has removed their loan contingency, if the buyer's inability to fund their loan and close, here's the language, fund their loan and close is due to buyer's loss of income, and they are very specific. It is only the loss of income, okay, from a COVID-19 related issue. All right, now I want to bring that home for you. I want you to realize that that's what that says. It says only if it's from the buyer's loss of income due to a COVID-19 related issue. Okay, and I mentioned about that earlier. Okay, then either party may cancel. Okay, so again, and we're using the word cancel rather than the word rescission. So, you're not rescinding the contract, you're going to cancel the contract. Okay, so cancellation goes to contract right. Okay, all right, I saw another question pop up here. I want to get to you before I lose you. Let's see here. So basically, thank you, Drew. So basically with this addendum, either party can cancel at any time as long as it is a COVID issue. That's what we're getting at. Thank you, Drew. Exactly. Okay, that's exactly what we're getting at. So under paragraph number 1, there's going to be an automatic extension for whatever period of time you want to do. But after that period of time, and again, this is to accommodate unforeseen circumstances, okay? And so this COVID-19 is that unforeseen circumstance, all right? So that's what paragraph number 1 says, okay? And if you're not, after that period of time, you may cancel. I'm going to agree with you, Drew. I know what you're thinking is that maybe that just allows the parties an opportunity to renegotiate the deal. That would be very unfortunate. Remember, you have that little thing called good faith negotiation, and I don't know if it's good faith if this is used just to renegotiate the deal. Okay, but no notice is required. They just leave. Okay. Think about that, okay? Your seller may decide, I don't like that. I don't want to sign this form. The buyer can sign it. I'm not interested in signing it if something happens. So what's always the cure-all for all that is a 3-day escrow, right? If it's going to happen within 3 days, then fine. But that's going to be your call, okay? Paragraph number 2 says that if they are unable to, and this is important, unable to fund their loan and close the escrow because of a loss of income from the COVID-19 related issue, then either party may cancel. Okay, gives us the power to the seller as well, right? Buyer can't do it. They say, well, listen, I want to stay in it for, give me another couple of days or whatever. The parties can agree to that. right? The parties can agree, and again, by contract, so addend the contract, an addendum to the contract, amendment to the contract, okay? And they may do that, but either party can cancel, and then the buyer's deposit shall be returned to the buyer, again, minus costs and fees incurred by the buyer. And again, no NBP or DCE shall be required. Okay, everybody with me? All right, okay. For some of us, we're sitting there shaking, right? Because I'm sitting here thinking, well, I don't know if I want to give the buyer, remember, I'm a practitioner like you, I experience this stuff. I don't know if I want to give the buyer the right to get out. As the buyer, I'd like if something bad goes on, I want everybody to agree now that I can cancel, rather than me having to file a lawsuit, to get out of it, and then maybe win in 2 years or whatever, 3 years. So that's the reason why we're having this webinar, so that you understand that there's more to this than just, no, I don't want to give them a right to get out, right? Because, all right, well, maybe you're going to suffer litigation as a result. I don't know. Talk to your broker. Very important. If you are the broker, talk to your attorney. This is a big deal, okay? And again, I thank SDAR for giving us the opportunity to discuss this, because this is a hot topic, okay? All right. Okay, good. Let me check my notes real quick. Okay, so, and again, on paragraph number 2, you have, you are going to be using it along with paragraph number 1. Let's take a look at paragraph number 3. Okay, paragraph number 3. So if checked, number 3, buyer and seller agree to mutually cancel the agreement, and buyer's deposit shall be returned to the buyer minus fees and costs. So in other words, if paragraph number 1 applies, okay, this is the big one. If paragraph number 1 applies and you check 3, then everybody just agrees that it's okay to go ahead and cancel, which you've already got that language in paragraph number 1. I don't understand why we did that again. Let me just make sure I'm hitting everything. So there is so much going on, paragraph number 3, there's so much going on right now. We need to allow the parties to just mutually cancel and put the cancellation into perspective, okay? All right. Let's take a look, and I've got some really important stuff to tell you, so hang in there with me. Option number 4, this is, I love it. I mean, even they danced around it. Okay. Option number 4 is other. Okay. Now, let me tell you what, and Robert Sunderland, I just think he's one of the funniest attorneys out there. Brilliant guy. He's on our risk management committee. He's just brilliant. And he says, whenever a real estate agent writes a document that includes, first of all, when we start writing things, when you and I start writing things, I think we're giving legal advice. I really do. And we do them in counter offers, and we do them in addenda and things like that. And I think it's legal advice. And I don't know an attorney that's going to deny me that, okay? Even though we've got a license that says that we've got this little thing that we can do that's really close to practicing law, but we can't practice law. So I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm not giving you tax advice. I'm not giving you medical advice, although you might want to take an aspirin, that kind of thing, okay? But in number 4, that's where we get an opportunity to wax eloquent. In the RPA, paragraph number 6, right? I see some of the craziest things, okay? And I read it and I go, wow, that was a nice try. But as Robert Sunderland says, if there's a comma in there, you need to be talking to your broker, okay? And if there's a semicolon in there, you need to be talking to your attorney. And I just think that's great advice, okay? So be careful what you write in number 4. Make sure that whatever you're going to write, you've passed by your broker for sure. Okay, and I would recommend that the parties, talk to the brokers, because or talk to their attorneys, because you see in here, there's really no exculpatory clause. There's really no indemnification that tries to keep you out of trouble. Nothing in here that says that the parties agree to hold the broker harmless or anything else as a result of whatever you write in paragraph number 4. Okay, all right. So let me see. So it's the greatest risk to the licensee. Even the C.A.R. attorney said that. No obligations for the party to sign the form. It is just intended to clear things up. It is not mandatory. It is not required. I don't know. I kind of like it. But, at the same time, I also believe in very short escrows. I believe in very short transactions. I don't believe in when I was teaching my law classes, I always tell them, you got the 17-day default, contingency period, and you did a 30-day escrow. So I always ask you, okay, so I know what the 17 days are for. What's the other 13 days for? And the answer is usually for you to get sued. Right? So something's going to happen in another 13 days. Why? Right? So maybe you want a shorter transaction. Okay. All right. Stay away from land sales contracts, but just do shorter transactions. Okay. So what happens now, if you're the seller, wouldn't you rather just move on? I have to agree with that. So, you all know that if we get ourselves tied up in litigation, the property's off the market, we're waiting, that kind of thing. And so maybe the seller, a lot of us that have been around a while, just say, you know what, I just want to move on with life, right? Let the buyer go and let's just move on with life. So that's what this does. It gives the seller that ability to do that. At the same time, it gives the buyer, I think a little too much leeway, but okay, I get it. Okay. All right. Again, has to be, and Drew, you asked a really good question. It has to be related, okay, to COVID-19, this unforeseen circumstance. Okay. All right, I want to make sure I answered your question. Whoops, do I have another one? Let me see here. Oh, hey, Rich. Okay, if when representing the seller, an RPA comes in with this document, I'm assuming it can be countered out, correct? So I'm going to answer your question, yes. I'm going to assume that the seller is countering it out, okay? But, internally, we need to discuss that. But the answer to your question, the generic answer to your question is, yeah, they can be counted out. You can counter out almost anything. Remember that we want to be careful that we definitely don't want to just counter out as a matter of process. We want to make sure we're countering it out because the seller says, I don't want it to apply. The whole point behind us doing what we're doing here today is making it so that you understand, that we all understand more fully the reasoning and the rationale behind the form, and what it means to us and us, and what it means to the parties when we do it. Okay, so it doesn't mean everything that this is creating a panacea. It's definitely not doing that. It's just essentially an answer to the current unforeseen circumstance. Okay, and nothing like this was done before. We've had other, in previous administrations, we've had these things happen. They were handled differently, that kind of stuff. And we didn't address these issues. We created a statewide buyer and seller advisory. We keep loading that up. I think it's at 16 pages now. Because stuff happens, and this is one of those stuff happens. Methamphetamines, 15 years ago, we didn't even talk about that. And then all of a sudden, it's a big deal, okay? All right, so what about verification? Nobody's asked me that question yet, so I'm going to hit you before you do. So what about verification? Does the buyer have to prove that they are getting out of the transaction, or they're asking to exit the transaction because of a COVID-related issue? Okay, I'm saying issue, not necessarily an illness. Issue means it could be you're just locked up, right? Okay, all right. So can you require proof? I love my tea. And the answer is, yeah, probably. Okay, so is verification required? So it's going to be an issue of reasonableness. And so, as I've told you in our webinars before, there's a standard of law called the reasonable man standard. And it's just a term of law. It doesn't mean man, woman, or neutral or whatever. It just means it's going to really be something for a trier of fact to tell us, either an arbitrator's award or a judge's decision on whether or not you were reasonable. And as we said earlier about Civil Code 1511, the courts are all over the place on it. We don't have any really defining thing. I don't think this is going to go up, to that level where we're going to have even an appellate decision, by Ninth Circuit. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's really going to be necessary. I think we're going to deal with this and we're going to let the parties move on. So do you have to remember, you have that obligation to act in good faith, and that's what this is intending to do. So remember, it specifically only gives the right to cancel based on COVID-19. Okay, important. All right, and see, current environment. Okay, and let's see here. Whoops, act. Oh, darn it, I put the wrong word in there. Again, I will send you my notes. If you send me an email, I will send you my notes, as well as the other things I'm going to show you here in a second. So should you use both paragraphs together? As the buyer, yeah, you probably would want to do that. As a seller, probably not. But each case is going to be different. As I said earlier, most of my sellers just want to move on with life, right? They want to go ahead and put it back on the market and just move on. Hopefully, it was somebody else that wasn't using this in a way to get out of the transaction, whether for good or for bad, right? Okay. Let's talk about open houses and showings. So we addressed the issue of open houses, and this has become a problem. So in Northern California, more so than here, and again, this is fluid, so this is moving on us, but there's this shelter in place. And so almost all of the temporary orders that are out right now are written exact language like the other. They're all the same thing, okay? So we've read through them. All essential businesses continue to operate, but a non-essential business does not continue to operate. And by the way, we are considered a non-essential business. Your open house is considered a non-essential business. And by the way, it falls under the doctrine of a gathering of people, okay? So even it doesn't clarify whether working from home is not an essential business, okay? So I get kind of a kick out of that. Okay, I got a question. Okay, hang on a second. Let me see if I can pull you up here. If one represent, okay, that was Rich. I'm sorry, Marla. My only comment is I think that it would be best if the word no be removed from option number 1. Okay, let me take a look and see what you got going on there. No, did I misread it? Where are you? No. I don't see the word no. Did I misread your question? I did not see, I think I misread your question. So option number 2 doesn't have that. My only comment is I think that it would be best if the word no be removed from option number 1. I'm sorry, you said option number 1. Okay, so, all right, option number 1. Unforeseen circumstances, no return to the buyer. No notice to buyer and seller to perform are required. So you're saying that notice would be required. I might agree with that. Okay, I think you have to, I mean, the assumption is that you're going to get some kind of notice, but remember that those are specific forms that we have created, and those specific forms contain language that holds parties liable. Okay, and I think that's going to be the argument from the C.A.R. attorneys. I can't speak for them, but I think that's going to be what it is. Hopefully Marla, I answered that. MVP and SP. Okay, good. Yeah. So exactly. You know, I have to agree with the fact that I don't want to use the form because the form also discusses penalties and risks and things like that. So the arguments at the C.A.R. level, at the attorney's level, is that we want to have they're exiting the transaction without harm. And maybe you and I don't want that. Maybe you and I want there to be harm, right? Unless, of course, the purpose here is that it has to be a loss of income from the COVID-19 related issues. Okay, so good call on that, Marla. Thank you. Got another question back over here. Where am I? Third line. Thank you, Dottie. So basically Drew, I answered that one before. Okay, good. All right. Thank you all. I really appreciate you asking questions because, sometimes I get, Linda says, you got to slow down. I can't slow down. I got so much to tell them. And that's the problem in most of our webinars. So, okay. So, Orange County released one yesterday, so a mandatory order that ordered that any gathering of a number of people are prohibited. So probably open houses, but not showings. And so that's where we started to see problems was, does that mean we can't do our business? The sad truth is that most of these are written to be overbroad. And overbroad or overreaching is a term of law that says, they're just too big. And I think it's part of me says it's a panic reaction to things that are bad. We want to stop it from happening. And I got to tell you, some of the things that we're doing are having that effect. They're slowing the spread of this virus. It is a virus, okay? It is contagious, okay? So some of that is working. At the same time, I worry about that little thing called martial law and just, restricting people's movements and things like that. So it's for the better good of the community. Remember to vote, okay? All right. So open houses and showings appear not to be considered an essential business. That's what they're saying. All right, let's take a look. Can you ask the question of somebody that comes into the open house, assuming that you have an open house, can you ask the question about whether somebody is sick? And we talked about that months ago. We never have this conversation, right? Because it's one of those things that might lead to discriminatory practice. Okay, so this is a really serious issue. Let me see. Now my questions are lining up. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I'm getting everybody. So can you ask them whether they're sick? Okay. And the question is whether or not that's going to be a fair housing violation. You all know I'm big on fair housing. It is a huge issue. We have a task force here in San Diego with FBI, the district attorney, the DRE, and fair housing. You don't want to be going there, okay? Bad news, okay? So a month ago, we never have asked a client about their physical condition. And the attorneys, when they were doing the webinar, by the way, they were using the word client when in fact, I think customer was the better word in a lot of what they were saying. So a customer, and this is in all the states, in most all the states, a customer is somebody that you are having essentially a casual conversation with, rather than a client, and that's somebody you have a written agreement with to represent, or someone where you might have created an agency relationship by an act that you're doing or words that you've spoken. So somebody walking into your open house is going to be a customer. Once you start having substantive conversations about the property or other things, they may be becoming a client. So I'm going to differentiate between the two because I can tell you the law does. And when we go into other states, we start looking at those distinctions between the two of them. So they use the terms kind of back and forth. It is probably okay to ask somebody if they are sick, but you must, and this is really important, they did a great job on this, you must ask the same question of everybody that comes in. Think about it. Okay. Don't just ask one person. Okay. They're sniveling or whatever. You've got to ask everybody the same question. So again, talk to your broker about that. If your broker needs, they should talk to their attorney, whatever. But I'm going to tell you, make sure you're asking the same question of everybody. If somebody appears to be sick, then maybe you don't want to be around them because this virus is very contagious. Okay. All right. And I've got all kinds of documentation for you. If you want it, I'll send you things. I'll send you the link to the websites. CDC is a great resource, of course, because that's ground zero as far as this is concerned. They're coming up with things all the time. We already have medicine for it coming on the forefront. I mean, this is unheard of that we'd be able to develop these things that quickly. The solution isn't here yet, but we already have things that they're using with trials and stuff like that. So okay, so make sure you ask the same questions, otherwise you have a potential discrimination issue. Can you ask the client if they've traveled abroad in the last 14 days? Because we know the incubation period about this is going to be fairly brief, okay? So it's going to be like 14 days for sure. Sorry, I'm just checking to see if there's any questions. Okay, 14 days. Can you ask the question? CDC says, yes, it's okay. So I've told you all 100 times that, if somebody says, can I build a 2-story house? The answer is, I don't know. And then refer them to the appropriate governmental entity, right? So, Del Mar, where I live, Del Mar, city of, go to planning and zoning department, 755-9313. I got the number memorized, right? So if you ask me whether or not you can build a 2-story house, I'm going to send you to them. Same thing here. I'm going to send you to the CDC, okay? You probably should pull their information up. It's really interesting reading, okay? We're always afraid of the things that we don't know. It causes anxiety. That's what I think a lot of us are going through right now, is anxiety, because there's things that we don't know. Okay, so CDC says, yes, it's okay to ask if your broker has adopted such a policy, but again, it must be directed to all clients. What about the seller refusing to do an open house? Let's talk about that for a second. Sellers, we're going to advise you to honor the seller's wishes, right? Seller said, now you and I, we're thinking, right, Barbara? We're thinking that maybe you're, rich, right? Sometimes we have sellers that are really just trying to get out of the deal, okay? So, you've got a listing agreement with them and they're really just trying to get rid of you. Okay. Remember, we're going to go back to that good faith versus bad faith argument. Okay. And so what if the seller says, I want, I don't want any open houses. At that point, you should start having a conversation with the seller about alternative types of marketing that you do, because you can have virtual tours. There's a lot of things that you could be doing, right? It may not just be the open house. And we'll talk in a second about what happens if you don't want to do the open house. So let me see here. Please send me. Okay, hey, Purdy, send me an email. When I close this, hi, Dan. Yeah, is it Irish tea or Red Bull? No, it's from Barry's Tea. It's actually straight from Ireland. I love it. It's a little bit much, but yeah, thank you, Dan. I appreciate you. I really do appreciate you. Purdy, please send me the email to kevin@burkerealestateconsultants.com or send it to education@SDAR. I have a ton of stuff to give you. I don't want to saturate you with it, but I lose this screen. Yes, Barbara, it's Dan. I love Dan, right? He's I love Dad. He's brilliant. Okay, he's really very bright. We're very lucky to have him. But please send me a separate email. If you put it up here on the thing, I'm going to loop when I close this window today. I'm going to lose all of it. Okay. So, all right. Other thing. So, open houses. I have a whole bunch of stuff for you on open houses. By the way, if the seller gives you an instruction, will you do me a favor and do Dan a favor and do all the brokers out there a favor? Would you be sure you put it in writing? Okay, have the seller sign it so that you have a written instruction. Okay, and then Jackie Oliver, one of our attorneys on the risk management, wrote a great confirming letter. You need to go to the SDAR website and pull up the confirming letter, and it says, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, based on the conversation we just had, whatever. Make sure you document the fact that you had that conversation. Okay, when the seller is doing anything that modifies the agreement, you definitely want to have a confirming letter that says, I want to make sure that I'm clear about this. I want to make sure that we put this in writing. Okay, protect yourself. Remember, we love our broker. We want to take good care of our broker. And so this is that first step towards doing that, or one of the many steps that hopefully you're already taking. Okay. All right. What else? If the seller is operating in bad faith, it may be actionable. What about the broker doesn't want to do the open house? So in the RLA on paragraph number 7A, and then later in 7B, okay, it explains the authority that you have. You can use any means reasonably necessary to do the open house. Okay, so I'm going to give you some more data on that. Landlord-tenant issues, government issued a moratorium. Governor, what's his name, Newsom. But later on, he turned around and said, "Oh, it wasn't mandatory. I just thought it was a good idea." But it applies to evictions and non-payment of rents. Now, here's the thing. Okay, so COVID-19 is going to relate to that as well. But then there's a rub to this. So even if you can get an eviction, even if you can get in front of a judge, right? And a lot of the courts are shutting down now. But even if you can get in front of the judge, some sheriff's departments in Northern California are refusing to enforce the court order. They're saying it's a non-essential business, and that's their way to not do that. They don't want to get involved in it. But remember that the new moratorium also says that if the tenant can skip rent, right? But the tenant has to recover all those rents within 6 months. You and I know what that's going to translate to. 6 months from now we're going to be chasing a tenant that is just going to move out, and there's a lot of holes in what's going on right now. So starting today, can you do repairs? And the answer is probably if it's a sanitation or a safety issue, so a health and safety issue, because we have code on that. Yes, you can do repairs. Today, there's a COVID-19 website. C.A.R. has created a whole website on this with up-to-date information. I'm going to tell you, I like SDAR's better, but that's just me. I'm kind of biased that way. SDR comes up with some great stuff, and we're hands-on and we're in the field. So I like that. Go to both. There's no reason to limit yourself to any of this. I'm going to give you that in a minute. The bandwidth, by the way, your internet connection, I mentioned this earlier, the bandwidth problems are becoming more and more common because more and more of us are operating from home. So here's the thing, you might want to think about beefing that up a little bit. Okay. All right. Gap insurance. I promised you I would talk to you about that for just a second. Gap insurance, title companies probably don't want to use it, but essentially it says you can have a closing without having a closing. So I'm not here to give you insurance advice either, but gap insurance might protect you so that you could actually close the transaction, waiting for an official closing to happen later. Talk to your title company about that. That may be an option for you. If the county closes down, right? I don't see that happening. Lenders are having difficulty getting into properties to appraise them. Guess what, right? I mean, this is a problem. So now we're looking at, can the lender accept a drive-by appraisal? We've all been in the business for a while. A drive-by appraisal, a drive-by, make sure the property's standing, right? And so maybe they're not going inside and measuring rooms and things like that. But these are crazy times. These are things that we have to make adjustments for this. So will the lender allow the appraiser to not actually enter the property? The most important thing I think that we're learning today is that you have to be flexible. You have to be able to adjust to these times, okay? Let me show you, I'm going to pull up, I'm thinking, let me see, make sure I'm getting everybody's question. Do I have everybody? But I want to show you a couple other things that I will send to you if you want me to send them to you. So first of all, whoops, I'm on the wrong thing. Okay, so mouse, let me make sure that you can see the screen. Yes, you can see the screen. Okay, so this is the coronavirus. Remember what I said? Put this in your, add this to your dictionary because you're going to see this a lot. Updates. So CAR has a website for this. I will send you all of this. You know what, folks? This is pretty good stuff. There's a lot. Okay. So if you had any questions of any kind and you want to know, your client is definitely going to ask you about this. Dottie asked me yesterday about taking a listing, and what if the client says, I want to delay things. I've had questions from people saying we're delaying putting the listing on the market, things like that. So guides for open houses and showings. DRE has canceled all the real estate exams through April the 7th. I'm preaching to the choir. Most of us here already have a license, but if you don't have a license and you're trying to get one, they've canceled the exams. Again, same thing. All these little things that we don't anticipate. We have a new issue. We have a new coronavirus weekly newsletter. We have all these things that are going on. And Jean Radsick, who is our president, she's wonderful at the state level, has some really good webinars about the subject. We are not having the spring business meetings. And by the way, NAR also canceled theirs. So guess what? We adjust, right? Remember being flexible? We're going to be doing all this stuff online now. We're going to have the CAR meetings. They're going to be virtual meetings. I've got one scheduled for tomorrow with all the regional chairs. NAR is going to have their meetings virtual as well. So that's what we do, right? Okay, that's as we say, that's who we are. All right, so here are the slides from the PowerPoint. Here's where the new form is, but again, you can find it in the I like the fact that now they don't know if it's an addendum or an amendment. So remember, an amendment changes an agreement, an addendum adds to it, pretty simple stuff. Why the need? Here's the whole thing. I will send this to you. Okay, here's the handout itself. Broken down into the slides that they had. I'll send you the link. Literally, they sent me the link on right after the event because I couldn't get on, and I guess they wanted me on it, but they sent me the link, and so I'll send that link to you as well. It's a pretty good little webinar. If you can understand half of what they're saying. Again, I'll send you my notes. If you want me to send you my notes, send me an email, say, please send me the notes, but be specific. So, my take notes from the CAR webinar is what that's called. I'll send you all this stuff. I've got a little package ready for you. Here's the COVID-19 guide for open houses and showings. You know what? Thank you to CAR for putting that together. I suspect that your risk management committee at the Greater San Diego Association of Realtors is probably going to, dig into this a little bit and come up with something, for us locally. Okay. Remember, there's no replacement, no substitute for local control. So, so anyway, that's kind of what we've got. Jane, look at that. I managed to actually get it down to an hour. Are there any questions? Anything I can help you with? I'm going to pause for a second. But again, I do want to send you, I'll send you my information, but you've got to send me an email. Otherwise, I don't know you're looking for it. Okay. So here's my email address again. I'm learning how to hide the presenter view. So here's my email address again. I'm more than happy to send you what I have. You can also send it to education@sdar.com. Remember that today at 1 o'clock, we're going to have a webinar on our PA, the residential purchase agreement. And I'm not sure exactly what paragraph we're on just yet. Thank you, Barbara. And thank you, virtual hugs. You're so sweet. Listen, I want you to do well, folks, because listen, if you look good, you make me look good. I've been saying that for decades, right? I want you to look good. All right. So I want you to know what these things are. Excuse me. And Jane has sent me a message saying, is that a new haircut? I got to get another haircut this time. But happy to help you in any way that I can. Please send me an email. If you want to be on the email list, if you want me to add you to it, I promise you, except for this week, because this came up spur of the moment, but if you want me to add you to it, I'm only going to send once a week. It's going to be pretty comprehensive, and it's going to talk about, oh, thank you, Kalina. It's going to talk about what's coming up this week. But this was an issue. This is a big issue. I sent one out on Sunday, and COVID-19. I'm sorry, it's here, and it's going to impact us. I'm making decisions right now of whether or not we've all got our Brita water filters and stuff. But I'm making decisions on, okay, the food's running out. I mean, these are important things. You're going to be concerned about that. If I can help you in any way, please let me know. And I do want to thank you so much for attending today, and I wish you the very best. Make sure I got everybody's questions. Yes, it looks like I did. Y'all take care. Bye-bye now.